As you may have noticed, the Canvas Gradebook has recently changed. I get a few questions this time of year about how to hide total grades from students and hide distribution graphs from students. The first thing I want to address is those questions because they're not actually covered in your gradebook. You can press your three lines to pop out your navigation menu, scroll to the very bottom, click on Settings. Under the Course Details tab, scroll to the very bottom, click More Options, and then check the boxes to hide the totals in the student grade summary or hide grade distribution graphs from students. If you make any changes here, save your changes by pressing Update Course Details. These two options prevent students from knowing if they had the lowest grade in the class, or perhaps their grade is not totaling properly because you haven't assigned all of your assignments yet. So it's not a bad idea to hide these totals and hide the grade distribution graphs from students. Students will still see what grades they got in individual assignments, but they won't have all this extra information. A few other things have changed in the Canvas gradebook. Things that have stayed the same, however, is that you still have a gradebook history. If you're entering your grades and you accidentally get off track, you can always recover that by looking at your gradebook history. This is my sandbox course, so all of these students are either grad assistants, and these are not real grades, just dummy data. But if you got off track and you want to see what your grades were before, you can pull up your gradebook history by clicking on Gradebook History, and then sort of going back to where you got off track. A few other things have moved around in grades. You'll notice that some grades post automatically and some grades post manually. You'll always control when grades release. You can set this as a global setting for your entire gradebook, or you can set it at the assignment level. This particular gradebook, I have it set at the assignment level. So some of my things I manually release and some release automatically. If it has the word manual, that means it's something that I have to come in and post the grades to the students. You change this at the assignment level by clicking on the three dots, coming down to grade posting policy, and then changing it from automatic to manual. After you've put in your grades and your feedback, if you're using SpeedGrader to put comments in, once you're ready to release your grades to students, you click the three dots, and then you click Post Grades. You also have the ability here to hide your grades. If you want all of your assignments for the entire course to release manually, you can change this by clicking on the gradebook settings, and then change your grade posting policy from automatic to manual. One of the new changes with the Canvas Gradebook is they now have the ability to apply filters. So if you're looking at all of your assignments here, and it's pretty unwieldy because you can't find what you're looking for, you kind of filter your gradebook. And depending on how you've organized your assignments, perhaps you've done them by module, you can filter to just by what's available in that one module. Or if you put your assignments into groups, you can filter by assignment group. So find something you want to filter by. So I'll say assignment groups, and then I just want to see the ones in my exam assignment group. Click here. You'll see that that filter's been applied, and now it's a little bit shorter. These are only assignments that are in the exams group. Then I can clear my filters when I'm finished. There's also a few more view settings that I think are quite handy, but now you're going to find them under the settings option and under view options. Your gradebook columns are arranged by a default order, but you can command this to be something different if you'd like. For example, maybe you want your assignments listed alphabetically or by due date. You can control this, or by module that they're associated with. So the default order is sort of just how you've created the assignments, and whichever one came first is listed first, but you can rearrange this gradebook into a way that makes a little more sense for you. So I'll say we'll arrange them by due date, newest to oldest. A few other things you can determine if you want to see or not. The notes column is handy. Notes are private, only visible to the instructor's eyes. They can be things like notes that the student's a student athlete, maybe how to pronounce their name properly. If there's anything you want to keep kind of in the front of your mind as you're doing your gradebook, but you don't necessarily want the student to see, the notes column can be helpful. If the unpublished assignments are cluttering up your gradebook and you can't get to where you really need to, you can uncheck that and turn it off. It is on by default, but it can take up a lot of space in the gradebook. So if you hide it, when you publish your assignments, they'll become visible in your gradebook, but not until then. The assignment group totals is where Canvas does the math. So I'll show you what that looks like. If I scroll over to the right, if you weight your assignments by groups, like I have here, this is 0% of the grade, 0% of the grade, 0% of the grade, all of these different totals, 50% of the grade. Perhaps I don't need to see this math and it's getting in my way. I can just click on the view options and I can hide the assignment group totals. You'll no longer be able to see like what a student's homework average is or quiz average is, but you will still see their total. But of course, you can also hide the total column if you'd like. The last thing, these statuses are the same. They've always been these particular colors. Uh, these colors are applied automatically as things come in. So for example, in mine, you can see that there was a few quote unquote late assignments that were listed in blue. Often I sometimes get asked, like, why is it a different shade of pink? It's just the different gradations to show that the difference between the students. So pink is still means something is missing, but it's a darker pink just to show that there's a difference between those two students, just like there's a darker shade of gray. And you do have the ability to change these colors. So if blue does not really necessarily mean late to you, you can click on this to edit it and you could choose a different color. And you can even put in the hex code if you have a very specific color you'd like in mind. Last thing I'll talk about is your late policies if you want to put one in. Your late policies, I'm going to jump down a little bit for a second, but I'll come back to that top column in just a minute here. You can have an automatic deduction that's consistent with the language you have in your syllabus by how much a student's grade is reduced based on when they submitted. So perhaps say it's 5% for every day that it's late. And then I'll go down to the lowest grade as possible as 0%. You also have the ability to apply a grade for anything that's missing. So if it's a missing submission, you want to give it a 0%. This is probably something you'd want to do at the end of the semester so you don't have to manually go in and put zeros in everywhere for submissions you never received. You can just automatically apply that 0%. And then any changes you make, you just click Apply Settings when you're finished. And just one last thing to draw your attention to in this video. We've always had the ability to export your gradebook, but now you have the ability to export a current gradebook view instead of your entire gradebook. So at the end of the semester, you probably want to export your entire gradebook, but if you want like monthly check-ins or things like that, you can also do your current gradebook view. And we've never had the ability to import before, so this is a new feature. If you are planning to import any grades that you've taken on an Excel file, I would encourage you to read the actual instructions that they give you. There's a nice little handy guide here that says what the CSV file should look like. This will launch the instructions about how you should structure your CSV file and what's going to happen if you do decide to import any grades into your Canvas Gradebook.